If you are a fabulous Black woman being targeted by the ex, like in this Nic and Cierra situation, you are dealing with something that normal jealousy advice can't help. One of the downsides of not discussing race and caste in America is that there are socially acceptable forms of malice that they're not articulated. And sometimes they happen to you and you don't know how to qualify them. What we're seeing with the press rounds that this cast has to make is that there are specific questions that are used to draw out an angry Black side of this woman that are being posed. And it's sneaky because it in part is supposed to play into this idea that she's a certain kind of person who tricked and swept away a good white man. The creepy thing is that for dark-skinned Black women specifically, they are deemed as capable of taking on these kind of attacks because they're tough and aggressive. But part of what has caught the internet's heart with Nicolandria is the way this man uses his privilege to shield her, and he takes some of those questions off. His consistent, vocal, effusive admiration of her is also intentional. It is signaling something. There is not a person on this app who can tell you how any of these relationships, where they will stand in a year, right? But in these current months of intense scrutiny, we are seeing this man protect her in a way that people are not expecting. And this kind of protection, it's necessary, and it's what you have to look for in a partner. But what's really going on with every single headline right now about Nicolandria? What can we learn from this? We've got famines going on abroad. We have conflict that we're not seeing an end to as this country chooses to side with dictators. And we also have an anti-democratic takeover going on in Texas. So this news kind of seems a little minute compared to that. But it's a snapshot of hidden caste drama that underpins most of the systems in your life. Nic, Alandria, and Cierra, they're all cast members of a lucrative product called Love Island. There's a trade happening here. The production gives you drama, we give them attention, they serve as sponsored content. And as a cast member, if you play your cards just right, you can walk away from this with a 6-figure marketing career. And we all know now, reality TV is a great way to amass significant social and political power. So go ahead, dismiss the whipped cream games and the exposed buns, but what you might miss is the naked ambition and this play for influence in this world. The stakes in a marketing world that has shifted to influencer power, well, they're high. Cierra was bombshell, she coupled up with Nic, she was a major lock-in for the Final Four. The Final Four means more screen time, more exposure, it's really good for your career. Cierra's only seeming threat was that she seemed to manage her relationship with Nic. When Cierra's past use of a slur against Asian Americans was exposed, the production realized, oh, she's going to make our product less lucrative, so they pulled her. Nic, of course, was justifiably disturbed because he has no idea why she was pulled, but he knows it's really bad to get pulled from a product like this, so he decides, I'll go explore another connection I've always had interest in. He chose to finish his experience and get to know Alandria better. There's 2 wrinkles here. Alandria and Nic did not have as much time as maybe some of the other people to explore this mutual interest that they had in each other, and Alandria has to worry about the fact that she might be an exotic exploration for Nic. Now, I know I said they had less time than other people. That's not exactly true. They've had interest in each other since day one. There was another couple in the Final Four, Iris and Pepe, that had no business being together in that sense. So we can't say that all the backlash is because they just didn't have any time together. Not true. What has ensued since that final ceremony is that we have a couple that seems genuinely excited to continue to get to know each other and that are actually physically and emotionally into each other. This blossoming that was immediately picked up on by the rest of society, and the dog whistles and the subtle shade appeared. And they were clocked and noted by smart audiences like you. Because to some people, they're not surprised that Nic is interested in the majestic Alandria. They're not surprised that together they have swept brand deals and placements. We see that some people look at their sweet time together and their trips as something that should have been theirs. Because not only have they had to deal with shady interviewer questions, just marveling at the impossibility of this all, they've had to deal with Cierra riding some of that wave. While I do believe at the bottom of this, Cierra is just trying to play the long game to remain relevant. She's riding on a tide of sentiment that has a historical context. It is a commonly held and often unexamined sentiment specifically towards dark-skinned Black women like Alandria, and it's something all of you light-skinned ladies need to pay attention to. And that is that dark-skinned Black women like Alandria are not serious romantic contenders to men who could have anyone. In Cierra's mind, Alandria was never a threat to her connection with Nic. And at the same time, she's pushing this almost threatening trope of the best friend who was taken up by your man. Alandria is the kind of girl people don't admit they think they're better than, even though they can't even sniff what she looks like. Alandria is the exact type of woman that Professor April Williams found will not be prioritized or pushed on a dating website or an algorithm because the learning machines have figured out, due to their preferential biased data, that she's not a good match because of how far away she is from whiteness. Alandria is the kind of girl people are surprised is pleasantly ladylike. Because when they see Black women, they see struggle. And yet they will never admit to the social stories that they tell about other women to themselves to feel better, because in their heads, they don't see color. It's a very convenient blindness. And it's amazing that for people who don't see color, they somehow have the same assumptions and shock to only a certain kind of woman. Now, was Cierra saying any of this explicitly laid out on the table? No. But she does direct her ire at Nic, the same Nic she was convinced was safe around dark-skinned Black women. We could also say, well, in fairness to Cierra, maybe this was just the edit. Maybe this was just how the production chose to show her. Her full thoughts and conversation weren't aired, but we don't have to. We just have to look at how she responds on her own social media and the things she likes and the things she insinuates. She is specifically setting herself up as someone who was robbed. That her man unexpectedly snatched her friend, acting like she got dumped from the island in a vote. And it's that same kind of blindsided behavior that reveals to us that you are only blindsided because you underestimated Black beauty. And that sentiment, it resonates with the kind of people who look at this and don't find Nic and Olandria's relationship real. Oh, it's just because I don't believe in reality TV romances. Well, I see how hard you go for some people who come off The Bachelorette. The level of testing and proving, it's not applied to other couples on this show. Let me just tell you the facts. The beginning of this democracy and the point of the democracy was to serve rich, white, land-owning men and no one else. If you were a white woman, tough luck. If you were a poor white person, maybe you'd get something, probably not. The American democracy was for white men with white power, specifically spelled out. And it doesn't matter if that hurts your feelings. It's just the facts. Women of all ethnic backgrounds, men of varying landowning degree, and mostly non-white men, they were not supposed to have the promises of democracy. It was just not for them. This isn't an oversight. It wasn't, oh, they just did it. No, it was legal. It was intentional. In this American hierarchy, lighter-skinned brown women and white women received a little bit more power because they were closer to the people who had the most power, the real players. Racism is not why we had this class structure. Racism is not why the American democracy only existed for white men. It wasn't like they were suffering from some illness. Racism was merely the justification. The original democracy and the society that was set up around it, it was done for the economy. An economy that used all women, native technology, and enslaved African people to flow all the money in one direction. Powerful white land-owning men and their allies. So where did that leave the lighter brown women and the white women? Well, they were social prizes. All these years later, look at how white and lighter skinned women are still marketed. Soft, desirable, the prize. Current research shows that our dating apps and algorithms still push that. Now you might say, Alex, all of this happened for hundreds of years, set up the fabric of the American legal system, and formed the basis of our entire society. How could it still be affecting us? And to that I would say, did you just hear yourself? Do you really think that only the last 50 years of social progress that is currently being completely gutted through the 1964 legislation, that this administration has decided to just repeal all the power to be able to enforce that, you thought that was going to undo hundreds of years of this programming? A president, I will add, who has the support of millions? Of course we still have people who look at dark-skinned Black women and think old thoughts. They will wonder how she stole a good spot in society with a nice white man. This is not merely about jealousy. This is about entitlement. The kind of hidden entitlement that a lot of women walk around that they never ever examine. The kind of entitlement that is reinforced when light-skinned brown women and white women end up with most of the brand deals and the money. The entitlement that says life might be bad under patriarchy, but at least I'm not a dark-skinned Black woman, which is stupid. You wish, but anyways. They will play by beauty standards that mimic and copy and steal dark-skinned Black women, all while thinking in their little heads that they're somehow better. And when copying dark-skinned Black women doesn't work, they default back to insults and try to attack them. Lighter-skinned women, we need to check our first responses because it is our social conditioning. Darker-skinned Black women have to know what's true and not be gaslit. What you are feeling is happening. Even though these girls cannot articulate what they are doing, they are insinuating a hierarchy that has not gone anywhere. The very social hierarchy that their grandmothers and great-grandmothers defended. Do not try to explain away what is happening to you. Clock it and move accordingly. I hope when we see so-called random drama like this, we can clock the way human relationships to power and political identity are everywhere. That the only people who don't want to admit that are the people who have something to gain from the biases they refuse to give up. Keep your eyes peeled for the reunion and the announcement that I think is causing all this crash out. Until then, I'd love to hear your thoughts.